Alright, in this video we're looking at the Hungarian algorithm. This algorithm we use to find the optimal allocation for people to do different tasks, so we can come up with the minimum time that we can assign people to complete certain tasks. So starting with this example here, so there's these people here, A, B, C, D, and then there's all these different tasks they need to do, and all that stuff they take to complete for like Andy to set up takes 4 minutes, 10 minutes for filming, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different combinations that we can choose from, but we are going to use the Hungarian algorithm to determine who should do which task. So the very first thing we need to do, we're looking at things by each row, and then we're looking at the lowest number from each row. So just looking at this row here, you can see that the lowest is 4, the next one the lowest is 1, the next one the lowest is 7, and then the last one lowest is 2. So once we've done that, what we need to do now is subtract this number from all these numbers in this row. So -4 here, -4 here, -4 here, -4 here, and then you'll end up with these numbers, and you'll have a 0 because we obviously subtract this number by itself. And you do the same thing for the next row. You have the 1, so you -1 on every number. Next is 7, so -7 each number, and lastly the 2 as well. And then this table is what you end up with these values. Now you see there's zeros here. Your next step is to come up with the minimum number of lines. They can be horizontal lines or vertical lines, so that you can cover up all the zeros that's on the table. So for example, drawing a vertical line here would cover up 2 zeros, which is great. And then drawing a horizontal line or even a vertical line here would cover up this 0 here. But let's just do it horizontally. You can do it either way. And there's only one more 0 we need to cover up. Obviously do it vertically or can do it horizontally as well. All right, using these 3 lines, and these are the minimum, this is the minimum number of lines required to cover up all these zeros. We will successfully covered up all the zeros. So the lines at the moment is 3, which is 1 less than the people we are assigning tasks for. So we need to keep going until this line is 4. So the next step that we do, taking these values that we have currently, so this is after taking the minimum from all the rows, we now do the same thing, but this time doing it by columns. So for example, looking at all these numbers in this column, look at the lowest value. In this case, it's either of these zeros, and then you minus all the values with the lowest value. But obviously the columns that you have a 0 in, anything -0 is not doing anything, so you might as well just skip those. So this column's fine as is. Same for this one, the lowest one is 0, so you can't really do anything here. Same for this one, the lowest is 0. Whereas this one doesn't have any zeros in it. So pick the lowest one, which is the 1, and you -1 on all the numbers in this column. Then you have your new values. So all these 3 are the same, whereas this last one is now -0 for everything. And you then again find the lowest number of lines that you can draw to cover up all the zeros. We're still at 3, so using these 3 lines, we were able to cover up all of the zeros that's in the table. So we need to go to the next step, which is now that we've done rows then columns, we just look at the numbers that's not covered currently. So these three and these three and pick the lowest value or identify the lowest value. And with this value, you minus 1, because the lowest value is 1 currently, to just the values that are not covered currently. And then by doing so, we have these new values for these 6. And then we try the covering up thing again. So we try to cover up all the zeros using the minimum number of lines as possible. And for this table, we have to use 4 lines to cover up all the zeros. So when we reach this stage, this is when we stop. So we have 4 people and 4 lines. So what we look at now is that we're looking at all the zeros. Zeros meaning that the person who has a 0 for color grading, for example, will be good at this job. It will take them the least amount of time. So we should assign them this task. So Andy can do 2 things currently. The setup is good for him. Color grading is good for him. Bo can do these 2. Catherine can just do this one. Derek can just do this one. And because Derek can only do setup and Andy can do both setup and color grading, it will make sense that we assign Derek to do the setup and then Andy can do the color grading. And because Andy's color grading, obviously Bo doesn't have to do that anymore. Bo can do audio editing, which only he can do. Same for Catherine here. Catherine can do filming. So we've assigned each job for each person, and then we bring our old table back. So these are the ones we assigned. And this is the original table that we started with. Just find the actual values. So the minimum number of minutes this task can be done is this, which is 16 minutes. All right, let's look at one more example here. So we have same people but new tasks. So first thing we do is we do it by rows. So look at each row, pick out the lowest number from each row. And then in this new table, we're just going to subtract. So 4 minus 4, 9 minus 4, 7 minus 4, 9 minus 4. And the next row, the lowest number is 5. So you're subtracting 5 from each. And then 4. And then 4 as well. So now that we have our new values, we'll try to see if we can cover up all the zeros by using minimum number of lines. And this one, we only need 2 lines to cover up all the zeros. So then we go to columns. So column wise, 1 is the lowest here. Well, these ones have zeros, so we don't need to do this column. This one has 3 as the lowest. This one also has zeros, so we don't do this column either. So minusing 1 in this column will give us these numbers. This one stays the same. This one is minus 3. And then this one stays the same as well. Then we again try to look for how many lines we need to cover up. So we can cover up all 3 using this line, and then this line and this line. So at the moment we're at 3, which is not good, but now that we've done rows and then columns, let's just highlight. Let's use a different color. So we've done rows and columns, so leave this shaded. And then looking at all the numbers that aren't covered at the moment, pick the lowest one. It's 2. And then what I'd like to do, I just first write down all the numbers that's not going to change so I don't get confused. And then -2 for all the ones that aren't covered. And then we're here. And then let's check how many lines we need now to cover up all the zeros. So we have 1, oops. We have 1, 2, 3, and then like 4. So we do need 4. So this is where we stop. And then we look at where people have zeros. And then I like to look at people who only have 1. So Derek has to do this task. And then because Derek's doing this one, Andy will do this one. And then because Andy's doing this one, Bo's gonna do this one. And then Catherine, who can do a lot, will end up doing this one. And your last step is to look at your original table and then figure out where these values are. It's these 4. So the minimum number of time here that we need is 5 plus 5 plus 9 plus 4, which is 23 minutes.